Science is proving now in the day to have, if you can, the brain can only focus between 25 and 55 minutes without the production starting to slowly taper off. Your brain can only perform one task at a time. That's if it's a focus time. So you can, there's no such thing as multitasking. It's actually, it actually makes you unproductive. Hi everybody, so I'm going to do a short video about is it okay not to go all out 100% all the time, you know, so giving full on energy every single day to achieve your goal. So we'll talk about your goal being a property goal because we're in the remote property investing group, but this could be a goal for anything. So I'm Harvey, I'm a remote property investor, but over the last 6 years, well over the last 10 years, I've been really studying mindset, your mind, how performance happens, high performing habits, what top performers do. And there's sort of I feel there's a little bit of a sort of misconception and an sort of fair conception of how to go all out. Like you'll see some people just be like just work harder than anybody else. Yes, you have to work hard. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you've got to be lazy, but you've got, not even in my opinion, science is catching up with this now. You've got to have a blended of knowing when to work hard and when not to work hard. So the answer to the question is yes, it is 100% okay to not be 100% all the time. If you go 100% all the time, you will burn yourself out. So entrepreneurship, like most things, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, you know. So I like analogying it to a boxer. So a boxer, a young, fresh, eager boxer will go out and try and knock somebody out in the first round and go out throwing haymakers and going hard at it straight away and potentially get knocked out because he's lost his energy and didn't read the opponent well enough. Where an experienced guy will know when to go out, know when he's got somebody on the ropes on the back foot, know when to pull back. So even if they're on the back foot, they will use their experience to guide themselves whether or not to put the extra bit of effort in to try and knock them out and get them out of the game, or to ride it out for the 12 rounds. So entrepreneurship is like a marathon or like a 12-round boxing match. You don't want to be going out all out straight away and sprinting hard, or going out throwing haymakers with all your energy trying for the killer knockout blow every single round. And like a boxing match, you'll have points where you'll go in, you'll explode a bit of energy, you'll go a little bit for that knockout, and then if that knockout don't fully come, you pull back, reserve your energy a little bit, and pace yourself out. So entrepreneurship, building property businesses. So I like to talk about property entrepreneurship and not just a side investment. So we're talking about building this into a business, or any business, not just a property one. Takes pacing yourself, takes knowing when to put the energy in and not to put the energy in. There is such a sort of culture around people sleeping less, people working 18 hours days, and some people wear it with pride. Like, I love Gary Vee, by the way, I love Elon Musk, two proper idols of mine, but they talk about working, Bill Gates, another one, talks about working like sort of 18-hour days and working harder than everybody else. And yes, you've got to find them points to work hard and find them points to work, know the times when to work the long days. Some days you have to put it in, but you also got to measure your energy, because if you keep on going at 100%, there is exceptions to the rules. So when you see Gary Vee, or you see Elon Musk, or you see Bill Gates, they're exceptions to the rule. They're like high level, Olympic level entrepreneurs, you know. They're like an Olympic standard level. So so if I trained every single day at golf, I've not got the innate abilities to get to Tiger Woods level. And same as, again, some people, no matter how many books you read, no matter how much you train, no matter how much you go to courses, get mentors, some people have got that innate ability to be elite level. You'll always be better than you're ever going to be getting coaches and training. I'm not advising not to do any of that. But some people have got that natural innate ability. And some people have got that natural innate ability to be able to work 18-hour days and it not affect their focus, their drive, their results, you know. But they're very exceptions to the rule. Science has proven now the majority of people, so probably more like 90% of people, once you get to 50 hours worth of work in a week, so that's a rough hour, some people might get to 48 hours, some people might get to 54 hours, but the average is 50 hours of productive work. And once you go beyond that, there's a point of diminishing returns. And the diminishing returns, so if you do, like if your fresh point was, some people be lower and higher, but the average is 50 hours a week. And in fact, it's more damaging to go over where your fresh point is. So it's understanding where your fresh point is. So if you go over 50 hours by 1 hour, 2 hours every week, it don't only affect the 1 or 2 hours you go over it by, but you consistently do it. It affects the whole 50 hours because you've not got the focus, the energy, your brain is not restoring and recharging. And this is conclusively scientifically backed and proven. You've got exceptions of the rule. You've got exceptions of the rule in every area, in health, in business, in sports, in anything, you know. Like you get some athlete. Look, I've just read Michael Phelps' book, and he trained harder than anybody else. He defied like what your body could rest on, but he also defied the fact that he didn't majorly look after his diet. So a lot of people, like athlete levels, would have really high level diet, but not be able to exercise that much. Usually you wouldn't be able to exercise that much without the right fuel, and he didn't majorly, he did obviously eat well, but not majorly as strict as you would think he would be to the level he was the best Olympian of all time. So there's always an exception of the rule, but also what you've got to look at when there is an exception of the rule is what is the trade-off of that exception, you know. So ultimately, another person that was famous for only sleeping 4 hours a night, two people here that was famous for sleeping 4 hours a night, was Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan. Both of them got Alzheimer's. So low sleep, overworking your mind with stress. So when you're constantly turned on, stress hormones are getting released in your body. Whether you feel stressed or not, you're releasing stress chemicals with the adrenaline and everything to keep yourself powering through. So even if you can perform like that, if you are that exception of the rule, is there going to be a trade-off further down the line? Let's hope not. But you read lots of books. I just read Sam Zell's book. He's a billionaire, entrepreneur, property guy. Follow it, like look him up. Like he's one of the, I think, if not the biggest, created the biggest property company in the world. And his partner passed away, and he didn't. So he was the exception. So he could work these long hours, and it didn't affect his health and his body. But his partner worked them same long hours, and he actually got a fatal disease and died. If I remember right, I read it beginning of the year, the book, but if I remember rightly, I think it was cancer or something like that. So ultimately, just because you can do something, is there going to be a trade-off further down the line, you know? But also, what are you trading off for the here and now? Have you got families? Are you working 18-hour days and not seeing your kids, not seeing your wife, you know, not seeing your friends, not getting that relaxed time, not getting that balance, you know? So ultimately, it's about also measuring the trade-offs that you also got instantly, but the long-term ones. Could you be trading off for that? But as I said, science proves that at about 50 hours, as I said, some people might be 42, some people might be 54, some people might be 60, but it's around the 50 mark. You actually are a lower performer. You have, like the science is proving now in the day, to have, if you can, the brain can only focus between 25 and 55 minutes without the production starting to slowly taper off. Your brain can only perform one task at a time. That's if it's a focus time. So you can, there's no such thing as multitasking. It's actually it actually makes you unproductive. But ultimately, if you do something that's in your autopilot, so say you've done something every day, like you can brush your teeth and look at your phone at the same time, because you don't need your brain to think about brushing teeth. It's in your autopilot. So there's certain things you do, but there's anything that needs your concentration and your focus, you shouldn't multitask, because what happens is you'll get mental fatigue. So when you jump from task to task to task, your brain mentally gets fatigued. Has anybody had it where you will be in the middle of doing something, you really concentrate, and all of a sudden your phone bings and you get a notification, or it rings and somebody rings you, and it could be meaningless. It could be a notification on Facebook about just an advert or something that just means nothing to you. And then when you get back to what you're doing, you try and focus back in, you're like, where was I? And that whole effort of thinking of where was you takes mental fatigue. Our brain uses up about 25 to 30% of the calories that we consume. So we consume calories to give us energy. And that consumption, our brain, even though it's, my one's quite big, I've got quite a long head, guys. All jokes aside, my son's got the same shaped head as me, and when he was born, everybody, like the doctors looked at it, monitored it, and he had a hematoma on his head as well. But then when it shrunk down, he had that head. I remember going to, this is a bit of a sidetrack, guys, I remember going to the hospital over the first year of measuring his head, we're monitoring him, measuring his head, and all of a sudden the doctor looked at me. I think I must have turned to the side one day, and the doctor looked at me, looked at my son, looked at me, went, come here. He got a tape measure out, measured around my head, and because we was measuring it for the percentiles and seeing where it was in the normal range, and he was just above it, and he looked at my head, looked at that, pulled up the thing, he went, I think you just got your shaped head, because yeah, I've got a funny shaped head at the back. But I say to my son, that's the trade-off we've got for having the extra brains we've got. But yeah, all jokes aside, that's what we're trying to thought of where we're at there. But your brain needs rest. All brains, exactly. Your brains, for such a small little part, is ultimately it ultimately uses like 25% of our energy. It's nowhere near the biggest part of our body, you know, or the biggest muscle, but it uses 25% of the energy we consume. So so when you multitask or you don't focus, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett both said focus is the biggest attribute towards their success. Little bit of advice at the end here I'll give you for that. My phone's on do not, all my notifications are switched off on my phone. When I'm going to do focus time, I try and do time blocks. As I said, Stanford University said you can only work between 25 minutes and 55 minutes without starting to tailor off with your productivity lines. So you want to set 25-minute timers on time blocks to focus on something. If it's important stuff, you want to do these throughout the week and put these time blocks in and focus on these things. Like at least have ideally one a day or 2 or 3 times a week where you work on something important, put a time block in, work on that task until completion or till the timer goes off. I'll put 25 minutes in, not 55 minutes, because then if it goes off and I'm not completed, I've got myself a couple of snoozes to get to the 55 minutes and stop. And if you do a breath exercise or a little walk or some sort of break between your mind and then go back to it, your productivity will shoot absolutely through the roof. Similar again, going back to what I'm saying about working 100% all out. If you measure yourself, so if you're one day, like this week, I've been tired. My son's been waking up in the night and I've been having broken sleep. Like he's 2.5, he's been a fantastic sleeper since 3 months old. So every time this happens, every now and again it happens. And he's been a little bit, I think he's been a little bit poorly this week. So he's been waking up in the night and it's been breaking my sleep. So this week, my focus, my energy, and as my sleep goes down, my sort of focus goes down. Sleep's the major linker to all of them, but also my anxiety kind of goes up a little, it creeps up a little bit, and I get a bit more worried about what I'm taking on and what I do. I start then thinking, am I capable? All these things creep in a little bit more, and then ultimately, when I'm like that, the last thing I want to be doing is really driving through at 100%. So you want to measure yourself. I call it like 65, 95%. So on the days that I've not slept well, like you might be able to perform at a certain level when you've slept well, you've eaten well, you've got no sort of stimulants in your bodies, and like you've not been drinking alcohol or been taking drugs. If you take drugs, you might be on top performance. Because you can perform that well that week, don't mean you can perform that well when you've had broken week because your son's been slightly poorly in the week, you know. So when you had broken sleep, because your son's been slightly poorly. So you've got to measure where you're at and the outside influences that come in like you could have had something go on in your family or something that stresses you, and these affects your whole energy and everything that you do and your performance. So you've got to measure how you put your input in comparable of what else is going on out of your controllables, and then measure that to what you're doing that day, you know. So you don't want to be going 100% full out if you are ultimately, you've got loads of stressors on in your life already, you know, because you're going to burn yourself out. And I do a little chart thing where I say, like, look, up here, let's try and do it like this. So up here is 100% using your energy, down here is 0%. This is your timeline. So you want to keep it between 65 and 95% and keep it like a marathon or like a boxing match, 12-round match. And the days you're feeling, what's the name? Don't do nothing, but dip it down to 65%. So go down to a steady pace, your default mode, I like calling it. And then the days that you're on fire and everything's going well and you're like, you've got the wind behind you, wind in your sails, get yourself up to 95%. Sometimes you creep at that 100, but you've got to know and monitor that, because the thing is, what happens to me when our energy's up and I'm all excited, I'll go 100% and I'll go to 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning working, and then I might do it for 2 or 3 days and then I have a massive crash. And this is the problem, when you have that massive crash, anything under 65% is unproductivity. So by the time you crash down and then climb yourself back up, all that time you're just stopping yourself, not like pulling yourself back. But it's hard. I struggle with this when my energy's up. It's hard to pull yourself back because you're all excited. But just pulling yourself back and going between 65 and 95% will give you that longevity and be able to make it like a marathon or a 12-round boxing match. So yes, it's 100% okay, but it's not 100% okay just to do it because you're scared of doing something. You've got to differentiate the difference between, am I stopping myself from doing this because it's just fear? I'm fearful from doing this live video. I'm fearful from doing this public speaking. I'm fearful from doing, like, putting myself out there and it not working first time and it looking like rejectful, or fearful from doing my first video and I mess up on it, I stumble, or it don't come across good, or I don't get many likes or many people watch it. Is it genuine fear that's holding you back, or is it because you generally need to rest and your energy is a little bit lower? So working that out's very hard, being that awareness and understanding that. But the minute you're aware of that, and then you analyse it each time you go to not push yourself forward and say, I better rest a bit, and you know to analyse that, it puts you in a whole different light. And your awareness is really, really key. Awareness is number 2 on my list of values, because the more we're aware of stuff, the more we will push forward. And it is okay to have ups and down days. Life goes on, which is beyond our control, and it is okay to like go full out also, but know when to pull back, like a boxer knows when to pull back, like a long distance runner knows when to pull back and not overburn themselves out with it, not burn their energy out. The same with burning yourself out. I can't remember the statistics of it, but something like 70% of entrepreneurs in the world, I heard this somewhere, I don't know how true it is, I think I got it from one of my coaches, Stefan, Better Brain, it's a health coach. I think it's 70%. I have to find that exact statistic, but something like 70% of the entrepreneurs in the world suffer some form of burnout, some form of stress, anxieties, which is really, really sad, you know. Like, so as I said, there's a big culture out there, go more, push in harder. Yeah, you've got to go hard, you've got to know when to go hard, as I said, like a seasoned boxer, know when to like go full out and when to sort of pull back a little bit and rest, and don't stop. When I say pull back, it's not stop. That's getting down to your 65%, your default mode, and then getting back up to your full-on energy. So hope you find that useful, guys. A couple of little tips in there also for you. Yeah, share with me, how do you manage your energy? How do you feel about it? Do you feel like a lot of people feel a failure because they didn't go all out? Like one of my mentees, it's like she was saying to me, I had such a good week, and her daughter was up all night in the nights because she's a bit party. I said, you've got to measure your performance on the outside circumstances and not beat yourself up. Only don't let yourself off, don't do nothing, as I said, always touch on it, but get your default modes, your 65% modes, where you can touch on things a bit more, like just like this, not so taxing and not going to keep on burning you out, but keeps your momentum there and gives you a good sense of self-achievement also. Like if you just, like I've got default mode with my yoga, for instance. I like doing 10 minutes to an hour every day. Hours very rare because I've never often got an hour to spare for it, but the minimum is I like doing 10 minutes. But my default days, I'll just do a sun salutation yoga flow. It takes less than a minute. So then I touch there, and after I've done that and I can't be bothered to do it, you get a good, yeah, I've done that. You get a little boost and sense of self-achievement. So it's really important to set your default modes, guys. But yeah, please share me any sort of default modes, or if you follow that, how you feel about it. Have you ever felt sort of embarrassed about that? And let us know. But remember, guys, you're constantly got to be evolving your ideas and your thinking and the way you do things. And if you don't evolve your ideas, you're never going to live on your own terms. So evolve your ideas, live on your own terms, and have a fantastic day, everyone.